the meeting of the Community Oversight Board to order. I will now read the appeal statement. Pursuant to provisions 2.68030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, please take notice that decisions of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County Oversight Board may be appealed to the Chancery Court of Davidson County for review under a common law writ of certiorari. Any appeal must be filed within 60 days after entry of a final decision by the board. Any person or entity considering an appeal should consult with an attorney to ensure that time and procedural requirements are met. I see we do have a quorum, and the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Are there any necessary corrections to the minutes? I have a correction under the section, on the second page, second paragraph. It says, Chair Hayes also informed the board a draft of Director Fisher's performance evaluation was prepared, rated, and revised by the Executive Committee. I'd like to change that to is to be, scratch out rated and say was prepared and is to be revised by the Executive Committee. We did not rate it, we rated it later. Okay. Scratch out the name rated, where it says rated, and put prepared, comma, is to be, and scratch out rated and put is to be revised by the Executive Committee. I found that late. Thank you. I will now entertain a motion if there are no more corrections. Mr. Milliner? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the minutes from the previous meeting be adopted as with the suggested revisions.
Is there a second? It's been properly moved and second that we approve the minutes. Is there any focused discussion? All in favor of the motion, approval of the minutes, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Motion to approve the minutes passes. Next on the agenda is the chair remarks. And I would like to say, before I start my chair remarks, I'm really pleased that we're in the community again. It's always exciting to be in the community because this is a community oversight board. And I would like to start with an overall message to the Community Oversight Board and staff. As I leave the Community Oversight Board on August 4th, I hope and pray that the board and MNCO staff will continue to stand strong and strive for excellence in overseeing police accountability and recommending improvements in the overall criminal justice system. May the Community Oversight Board and staff remain engaged and continue to earn the trust of the Nashville community as they focus on making improvements in public safety. Know that many lives depend on your work. In a commencement speech in May of 2016, the late Congressman John Lewis gave a charge to Washington University students. It reads, "You must leave here and go out and get in the way. When you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you must have the courage to stand up, to speak up, and find a way to get in the way." And similar to Congressman John Lewis's charge, it's applicable to the Community Oversight Board and staff. The Community Oversight Board and staff must move forward in going out and getting in the way of those that resist police accountability and or who want to protect bad police officers no matter what. When the Community Oversight Board sees something that is not right, not fair, not just, you must have the courage to stand up, to speak up, and find a way to get in the way of economic and political power structures that often impede significant progress in overall public safety. You continue to make a difference in the lives of the citizens of Nashville, but never forget the enormous sacrifices that were made to form the board, including lives being lost. And now I'd like to say a message to the mayor and the Metro Council. Nashville's leadership needs to fully embrace the Community Oversight Board with actions, not just lip service. Provide the resources for the Community Oversight Board to operate effectively, including making MNCO staff a high priority in next year's budget. Take off the blinders and understand that Community Oversight Board is not a liability, but a benefit to overall safety. Stop viewing the Community Oversight Board as an eyesore to the police department. Do the research. You will find that you have a best practice Community Oversight Board right here in Nashville. Stand up to the continual attempts by the state lawmakers to weaken the Community Oversight Board. For example, all COB employees must be registered voters of Davidson County. To my knowledge, this is not required for any other Metro employees, including MNPD. How is that fair? Why are you not standing up to state lawmakers and on this other community oversight board attacks? On the other hand, Nashville's leaders have shown their willingness to push back on the state of Tennessee on issues they deeply care about. Now some words to my fellow Oversight Now activists. It is so appropriate for Community Oversight Now, a coalition of community organizations, to receive the first Community Organization Award. Most will agree that Nashville would not have a best practice COB without Community Oversight Now. Community Oversight Now stands on the shoulders of so many justice organizations and individuals of the past. Just like the Apostle Paul in the Christian New Testament, 1 Corinthians indicates that some plant and others water, meaning that many hands help move the ball down the field. So some of us worked on the initial COB concepts, while others protested in the streets. Some of us worked on legislation while others engaged in education of the community. Some of us obtained petition signatures while others worked at the polls. The point is that even though we have representatives here today, this was very much a group community effort. The establishment of the Nashville Community Oversight Board is a testament to what can happen when persistent activists, allies, and 130,000 plus Nashville voters come together for a common cause. I am so thankful to have been a part of this organization. Yes, we had our heated discussions along the way, but this was to be expected when we're dealing with mostly A-type personalities, and I mean A-type personalities. Why did this effort work? To me, it was because you care about community more than individual accomplishments. The group never had an official leader. You were deeply concerned about those on the margins of society. Many people confided in you even before there was a community oversight board where they could be heard. You had a never give up attitude. Failure was never an option. You volunteered long hours to get it done. While many in Nashville were sleeping in their beds, you were working into the wee hours of the night. If I ever had to go to war, I will always be comfortable going into battle with my fellow activists from Community Oversight Now. Years from now, citizens of Nashville will perhaps wonder, how did we ever operate without a Community Oversight Board? A time when there was virtually no police accountability. In the interest of public safety, Metro Nashville government owes a great debt to the work of Community Oversight Now. In my opinion, this group receiving an award for the community oversight from the Community Oversight Board, a Metro Nashville government body, is a small way of Nashville simply saying, thank you. I look forward to the period of recognition. Finally, it has been my honor to serve as chair and a member of the Community Oversight Board. To sum up my advice to the board and staff is for you to have a give up attitude. And remember that failure never can be an option. Too many lives depend on your work. And I would just like to acknowledge some people here, my family, my wife, Robin is here, my stepson, Adric. I do have my family, Arnisha, Christina, Marlena, that are probably watching online. I have some other relatives that are probably doing that. And then also Community Oversight Now. I do want to recognize, I'm so good to see you all out there in the audience. We work so hard. And now we'll go to the next item on the agenda. Executive Director's evaluation and open range increase.
I would like to applaud our friends.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I brought some tissue here just in case, so hopefully I won't have to use it. Now we're to the exact, and I will give a report on the evaluation and open range increase. According to the bylaws, the COB Executive Committee is to evaluate the Executive Director and submit a report to the board. The report to the board is as follows. First, I want to talk about the process used. A draft version of the performance evaluation form text was completed by the chair with input from the Executive Director for the period 6/1/2021 to 6/1/2022. Each Executive Committee member had the opportunity to request any needed changes. Once the text was finalized, the Executive Director Fitchett received a formal evaluation from the COB Executive Committee on 7/14/2022. Each Executive Committee member anonymously rated each of the 10 categories on the form. 2 non-executive committee board members then compiled the average of the results. Her overall, Executive Director Fitchett's overall rating was 98%, which indicated that the COB Executive Committee is highly satisfied with Executive Director Fitchett's performance. Now to open range increases. Based on her performance, similarly, each Executive Committee member anonymously selected an open range recommended increase amount, or percentage rather. Again, 2 non-executive committee board members then compiled the averages of the results. The Executive Committee collectively recommended an open range increase of 12.25, retroactive as of July 1st, 2022. And are there any questions or comments on the report concerning the Executive Director's evaluation and open range increase? Hearing none, I will now entertain a motion to either approve or disapprove the open range increase. Dr. Hildreth?
Move to accept the evaluation for the Executive Director and approve the open range increase as indicated.
Is there a second?
A second.
It's been properly moved and second that we accept the evaluation and the open range increase amount. Is there any focused discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. The motion passes. Thank you, Executive Director Fitchett. Well deserved. Thank you.
Thank you all. I appreciate it very much.
And now, on the agenda, we go straight to your report.
Okay.
How did you design that?
I don't know.
We go straight to your report.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for everyone that's here too. I want to start out talking about this personnel update that we have. You know that we were approved with 5 new positions. And we are trying to get the positions that were already vacant filled. And I think that we are going to be able to get that done pretty quickly. So Mr. Hayes and myself, we interviewed candidates for the Research 2 analyst position, and we'll make a selection by the end of this week. And hopefully the person will accept, and we will move forward on hiring an assistant director, some investigators, an administrative service manager, a professional specialist, and a social worker. So that's where we are, and hopefully we can get those. Of course, once we do the requisitions, it is really up to HR to get those out as quickly as possible. I appreciated your words and your remarks about the staff having this residency requirement and limitation, because what is happening is the pool of applicants for employees or those who want to be employed by the COB is dwindling down. So we have people who have the qualifications and the expertise, but because they cannot afford to live in this city because of the rising cost of rent, affordability, they have to live outside of the city limits, and which makes them ineligible to work for the COB. So I appreciate you acknowledging that. We have continued to have meetings. The executive staff and the MOU committees met on Thursday, July the 14th. I continue to push for our department to find trainings to help them, learn this craft of police accountability. Also to find leadership and management or any other trainings that they feel are appropriate for each one of our staff members. Staff and board members attended a NACO webinar training, which was called Expand Beyond the Camera, Situating Body-Worn Cameras Within Civilian Oversight. I also attended Lipscomb University's first annual Emerging Leadership Symposium and Giffords Law Center, which was kind of working in conjunction, with Northwestern's Gang Prevention and Intervention Conference. They had a webinar that they invited me to on the intersection of policing and community violence interruption work, which was super interesting. I was very appreciative to have that invite. I had multiple meetings this month. Some of them was with research analyst Williamson, as well as the community liaison, D'Amica Robinson. So I attended a meeting on performance management for our office, trying to figure out, that was with Bruce Clark of the mayor's office, what information we're gonna be reporting to the mayor in this new fiscal year. And so we are really trying to hash that out now in regards to our metrics for the department. I met with the MMPD's Interpersonal Crimes Branch. I also met with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, and I'll get to that a little later. I went to the department head and elected officials monthly meeting, which was at the end of every month. That was in June. And I also attended yesterday evening the Metropolitan Council's Public Health and Safety Committee special call meeting on opiates, which was really great. The community liaison has been working really hard. We've been really trying to get as much information to the community as possible. So we've been out in the community doing mostly festivals or something like that. But she's been meeting with different agencies and organizations just so that we can find out how we can help each other and partner with those. Some of the ones that she's met with already was Turk, Surge, and NOAA. She's also been on phone conversations with them as well. And so she and the research analyst Williamson, they attended the State of Economic and Social Wellbeing that was hosted by Metro Social Services. And she also attended the Jefferson Streets Jazz Festival, myself and her, and it was very successful for us. We do have more meetings scheduled in the community. We have one August the 24th, that's gonna be at the Southeast Community Center in Antioch. The one in September, which is September the 28th, is gonna be in the Pruitt Library in Napier Gardens. And then October the 26th is gonna be at the Coleman Community Center on Nolensville Road. I will tell you that Attorney Yoon, our legal resource advisor, is out on paternity leave, and he will return in October. So congratulations to him. We're very excited about that. Our research analyst, Mr. Gavin Crowell Williamson, he's going to give you a update on a policy advisory report proposal regarding body-worn cameras. And we know that that was something that came out in our last meeting in regards to the Metro Police Department's issue with body-worn camera footage not being able to transfer over and losing some of its footage. So we'll discuss a little bit about that. He and I had already been really speaking about auditing body-worn cameras. And so he is going to shortly introduce a proposal to the board in regards to that. He's been super busy this month as well, attending meetings with Samsha Gaines. Also, he attended different webinars, use of incident-based data, key trends in body-worn camera policy and practice. He also attended a town hall on people with disabilities in policing, which was hosted by Austin's Oversight body. And so that's been really great. Our investigations team is still moving out of this backlog. We'll have a discussion about that today. This month, from our last meeting in June to now, we have received 5 new investigative complaints. We received a total of 20 non-complaint or contact calls for service in the month of July, and the investigator submitted 4 requests for MMPD records. They didn't have any issues with getting those records, as far as I know. So that's good. We did have a policy advisory report update that we received on July the 18th from the chief. He was responding to the COB's policy advisory report, comparing COB and MMPD's investigative findings. He accepted 1 out of the 4 recommendations. Regarding his acceptance, we will meet to discuss forming a shared set of definitions for investigative findings. He did not accept recommendations 2, 3, or 4, and he cited that he did not recommend those based upon the advice of Metro Legal. The MMPD is unable to accept this recommendation. So as for the body-worn camera update in regards to the investigation that we had requested from the police department regarding body-worn camera footage that had been edited, I spoke with OPA Director Moranti regarding the investigation. That was last week, and she told me that they might have it ready by Friday that just passed. I have not heard from them since that time. And so she told me that they had a couple more people to interview, and then they would wrap it up. And we haven't heard anything about that. And secondly, we have not heard anything about the audit that we had requested information from them regarding the next steps in regards to how we want to receive body-worn camera footage from them. So we haven't had an update on that either. I did meet with the TBI this month, and I'm sorry, I didn't put the date. It was July the 12th. And I met with their team. It was the assistant agent in charge, Josh Melton, their attorney, and several other agents that were there and present. One was on the phone. The agent in charge of investigations was on the phone, and his name Dro Craig is his name. So anyway, we discussed the MOU. I was a little, I wanted to get some information on related to how they went about having an MOU with MMPD, with the DA's office, and why we were not included in that conversation, especially since they were well aware that we didn't have an MOU with them. And throughout that conversation, what I found out was, what was revealed was that they had been working on trying to get an MOU with MMPD since the pandemic is what was referenced, which, it is concerning that they've been working on this thing for months and months and months, and they have not included us in this conversation. And so I expressed that to the TBI. I told them that, they asked, what did we want? Did we want to have our own MOU? Did we want to kind of piggyback on the MOU that was already present with the other agencies? I told them that I wasn't really comfortable talking about that until I had spoken to you all. We have a MOU committee in place, see what direction we want to take. And then we would move forward on that. And so we would have to have some subsequent meetings. And so they were fine with that. And that was the end of that discussion. And they sent me an email back with a list of people who I can contact and who I can get information from when there is a critical incident. And so they did give me the list of names. They shared a lot of information with me in regards to their phone numbers and things of that nature. So that's really good. That's a great step in the right direction. It does not necessarily change. At this point, I don't think that there's any changing what would happen if I respond to a scene. But I do think it's best that we get it codified. The Force Review Board is, they had one in June. They canceled that. The next one is scheduled for Thursday, August the 4th. The next department head and elected officials monthly meeting is going to be canceled for this month and will be in August. I do want to say to all the new people on the board that the Citizens Police Academy will have their fall session from September 13th to November the 15th, and all COB members must attend this mandatory training. And they'll be releasing the applications in the next few weeks. There's also another training for board members who haven't taken, and I think it is Metro's sexual harassment policy training. I'll make certain that you get that information. If you haven't taken it, just let me know so I can get you scheduled to take that. It is like a webinar, some type of training like that. And that kind of concludes my executive director's report for this month. And I'll take any questions.
Are there any questions for Director Richard? Mr. Goddard?
Yes, at the executive meeting, we discussed the missing video, and I asked that we communicate to Chief Drake that we would like Commander Lara informed and able to give details of where that investigation stood at this meeting. Are you able to do that? Is now an appropriate time for that, or should that happen later? Okay, thank you.
It is.
Should know by now. Good evening. Hope everybody's doing well. So on that, the investigation regarding that body-worn camera footage that was missing some of the editing that was done on there. What happened was on here, I got some information that says the OPA has completed the investigation regarding the redactions on that. The investigation was sustained against a civilian employee. So I want to make sure that, it wasn't an officer who actually did anything. It was a civilian employee who was his job was to make sure that it do specific redactions on all of those videos. The sustained policy violation was MNPD 4.2040, personal behavior, and to wit, Information Technology Division, Open Records Information Release, body-worn camera, in-car camera video standard operating procedures. For any video that requires redaction to protect records or information as listed above in section 8.6, perform video and audio redaction as prescribed by the SOP redaction guidance in section 8.6. So that's just the policy that they violated. The policy violation was set at a category E, which is a first offense and written reprimand. I just want to explain to you why they came to this, because there's a little bit of some misunderstanding of why this occurred. It says the following mitigating factors were applied. So there were some mitigating factors. There was no intent to cover up officer misconduct or mislead the Community Oversight Board. I want to make sure that is very clear. It may have seemed off the surface that this is what it looked like, but there's a reason why this person did this. And it says all profanity used, just so you know, all profanity used by both MNPD personnel and community members was being redacted in a neutral manner. So it wasn't just the police officers' profanity that was redacted. It was also, in that same video, the community members' profanity was also redacted. In his prior employment, the employee worked for Metro Channel 3. So those who are here recording this meeting right now, and it was common to redact profanity from previously recorded events before posting on YouTube to be viewed by the public. That is the way Metro 3 did everything. They made sure that there was no profanity in any of their videos or any of the recordings before it was put on to the public. Unfortunately, this employee, without any type of malice or without an intent, continued doing that, believing since he's still working for Metro government that he could do that. So that has been the reason why he did it. It wasn't somebody told him to do it. It was something that he had been doing for as many years as he's been working, redacting video from Metro 3, and he continued doing that now. It has been addressed. The Public Records Unit has adapted in how they redact requested audio video by ensuring the redaction is logged and obvious to the user. So if there is any redaction now, you will know that there has been a redaction in the video. If there's any reason that something has to be redacted, you will know about it. They'll put something on there so that it's clear to the user that something is being redacted. The practice of redacting all profanity came to light and was immediately corrected months before this previously redacted video was brought to our attention by the MNCO. So I think that there was already something that triggered that something had happened when it came to redactions, and they dealt with it through policy and everything else. But again, this may have been one of the videos that just got through and that it was already too late to go back and redact. But it was not a intentional act by the employee. Again, he had been doing this type of redaction for as many years as he was working for Metro 3, and he just continued doing that, believing that he was not breaking policy by doing that because they believe that you're not supposed to have that profanity in any type of video that's put out to the public. So again, we have addressed it with him. He understands that that's not the way we move forward in this area when it comes to redacting video. And at this point, you know, the IT department is taking care of that, making sure that doesn't happen again. So I just want to make sure that you understand it wasn't intentional. This was just a real oversight of this person and the job duties, and not understanding that they can't do that for these type of videos. This is not the same as doing something for Metro 3.
Thank you, Commander Laura, for your report. I'll continue with the questions from Mr. Goddard. I'll start there and ask other board members if they have questions for Commander Laura.
Yes.
I'll take a moment. Two or three things come to mind.
Yes, sir.
Was anyone else in the IT division, particularly that person's supervisor, aware this was happening? I'm sorry. Well, let me repeat that. Was anybody else in the IT division, in particular that person's supervisor, aware that these redactions of profanity were happening?
I can't give you that information right now, but I will find out. I'm sure that it came to light at one point, so somebody had to know. But I will find out if there's any specific person, and I wish I had that information, but all I have in the information is specifically for this officer or this employee. But I can definitely find out ASAP.
I would hope the investigation included the supervisor and up the chain until you found out.
The information that I received is just a final kind of overview of the investigation itself. I haven't actually reviewed the actual investigation, but I will make sure that I find out exactly who was involved in the investigation, and if there's any supervisors that were also involved and, addressed this issue with them.
Okay,
So,
and my understanding is, and it's something of a legal issue, so legal advisors may need to talk, but my understanding is that what comes to the Oversight Board shouldn't have anything redacted unless there is a legal requirement that it not be able to be provided to the Oversight Board. So if that's the case, I would hope the IT group, would ask that the IT group been informed that we are, for lack of a better word, special, that anything else in policy, there's not a general policy, what doesn't get out that applies. It's a much narrower set of redactions that can be effective with respect to the Community Oversight Board.
That is correct, sir. We actually, they know that there's a certain criteria of things that have to be redacted by law. Apart from that, when we have say, an officer involved, OIS, officer involved situation, the board comes or COB staff shows, and we show them the actual video of the live, unredacted, for the most part, unless there's anything specific, but they get pretty much the raw footage of those videos, the body-worn camera and in-car camera. So we know not to redact anything other than those things that are by law, such as juvenile information, certain things that are by law that you cannot decipher or disseminate to anybody else that's outside of law enforcement. We've been doing that. Again, I think on this one, this person just went with what they've been doing in the past and not realizing you can't do that here.
Okay. I would state, this is a personal opinion, I believe that following up on the complaint that led to this Oversight Board probably has the ability to conduct its own investigation into this. I certainly hope that the investigation the police department has done satisfies this board, but I do know that I view us as reserving that right, not looking for a resolution on that or a motion on that or anything, but just noted that. Thank you. I really appreciate the detail you've gone into and how much you got yourself up to speed on this for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I recognize Mr. Holloway.
It appears to me that it was just a slap on the wrist, but apparently he should have contacted our supervisor before he made that correction. And for as the COB, we should get the raw footage of it before anything is beeped or deleted. But how can we complete our investigation if things are blocked out where we can't get a true story of what took place?
Understand. Again, sir, we redact the things that by law we have to redact, but apart from that, we've been giving everything else that we are supposed to be giving the COB when it comes to any type of footage that we have. So.
Ms. McCree?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Captain Laura, for following up on that. I would be really interested to know if this was something he was doing at his former job, continued to do while working for MMPD. Where are the gaps within the training that would not have covered what could be redacted, what should not have been, as it specifically relates to MMPD? So I know you said a while back some of the training manuals and maybe the policy around redactions had changed, but maybe not the practices. Is there a new manual, or is there, again, that has not been written into the trainings that they would have received in onboarding?
So I can't speak on their training, but I know that they do have a standard operating procedures, and that's kind of their manual of what they have to do, especially here. That's where they found the violation, is that the standard operating procedures redaction guidance in that certain section 8.6 that said this is how you redact. And I think that, again, I don't believe that this employee, even thought that was an issue, because they had been doing it for so long for Metro 3. And it may have been one of those where, well, I'm still working for Metro, nothing has changed, not realizing that you still have to, you can't redact that type of information from these types of videos. The person had access to the standard operating procedures, obviously did not read it, or did not understand that section of it, or whatever, for whatever reason, and that is why it was sustained that you didn't follow the policy. You have a procedure, you went outside that procedure, but it was a first-time offense. During the investigation, from what I understand, again, there was no malice, there's no intent to try to hide anything, and he was doing it across the board. So he wasn't going, let me just redact the police officers. He was redacting everybody's in that video. He was redacting anybody that said used any type of profanity, that's what he redacted. So again, it wasn't just the officer, he also redacted the citizen, because that's what he was taught when he worked at Metro 3.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to recognize Dr. Hildreth, then Mr. Milliner.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commander Laura. First, I would like to speak in support of Member Goddard's statements with reservation to take further action if necessary. I do have a process suggestion, Chair. I'm not sure if this goes to staff, but I'm wondering if we could get a specific list of the exceptions and have that posted to our website. We know I'm always in favor of making sure that we are revisiting and re-upping process as clear so the community can stay in this conversation. And I do remember several meetings back when this came up and we looked at it line by line, but I think there's several members on this board who weren't there at that time. I think it would be helpful to have the language of the exceptions listed, and that we have that list available on our website so that we can let our publics know how to follow this conversation along as we determine whether or not we let it rest here or whether it needs to go further. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, and I'll get that for the board and send it to Director Fitchard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and
Mr. Milliner. Now my mic was off.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I agree, as well as along with my other colleagues, about going along with Board Member Goddard's statements and reservations. However, Commander Laura, I think it's important for the community to understand the background of how we got to where we are, where there was a charge by a citizen of discourteous treatment to this individual, one that this board and its staff made a recommendation to the chief of police on, and as part of the discovery, the evidence that came back to us did not include the profanity that the officer directed in regards to, I'll say, the situation and the complainant. Now, I find that to be very relevant, extremely relevant. Now, I accept the MNPD's presumption of intent on the part of this employee, that their intent was not to in any way tamper with evidence, okay? I wish that the MNPD would be as acceptance of our request for the presumption of correctness. When we put forward things and allegations with a preponderance of evidence. So on the first, just as a principal issue, I find it difficult to reconcile the explanation that includes us accepting the internal investigation's findings on intent when it runs directly contrary to many issues that we put forward with the presumption of correctness that has been rejected. Now, I have a question first, one question first of all. This individual was an employee of Metro, MNPD, or Metro IT?
So from what I understand, this person is a Metro, or police IT now. So there's Metro, I believe, IT, and now he is a employee of police IT. So he went from, I guess, the big Metro to the police department.
And how long has this person been an MNPD employee?
I couldn't tell you the exact information, unfortunately.
I'd like to know that.
Sure.
I find it at best unfortunate, at worst incompetent, that someone would come into this position and not know what the legal statutory exemptions or redaction requirements are. I know what they are. I'm a board member. It's in the documentation. I've read it many times. It's not my job, 8 hours a day. I find it difficult to accept that explanation without some glaring, I won't say, well, without reaching some glaring determination about credibility and competency. I find that hard to believe. But in addition to that, I would like to think that the individual would have at least bleeped it out. But that didn't happen. What happened is that the tape was spliced. It was spliced. There was continual footage. Footage was dropped. Footage was spliced back. That does not cut mustard. Doesn't pass the test of Hoyle to me. So I reject that in its totality. And it is a matter of process and that kind of thing. So I understand that, and I'd like to know if you can come back to us. And that, in fact, I ask you right now, do you have personal knowledge as to whether or not it was redacted or if it was edited?
I don't have any personal knowledge on that. I can find out through the IT department. Yes, sir.
Well, I'm going to go with the presumption of correctness from our executive director who viewed the footage, that it was edited, it was spliced. And again, but if you come back with a different answer and evidence to the contrary, I'd really like to hear that.
Okay, I'd like to recognize, I thought Director Pritchard.
Woodson was first.
Well, okay, you were pointing there, okay.
One of the questions that I had has been asked already. One of my, I would be curious to know how long this employee has been in this particular position. And also, has this employee's past work been, was that included in the part of the investigation? Have they looked at previous work to see if this has been done in other videos? I mean, I know that it was said that it was an issue before, but like, is it something that like all of this employee's work has been looked at? Or is it just this video and maybe one other?
And I will find that out. I'll have to go and see exactly through the IT department exactly what has been done. But again, from what I understand, they had found that this had occurred, and before this was found, this had occurred and they had addressed it. This may have been one of the videos that just slipped through the cracks where you were able to get it before it was corrected. But again, how many of these videos this certain employee was involved in or whatever, I don't have that information, but I will definitely find that out and get the specifics on that for you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Director Pritchard, and then Ms. Spencer, and then I guess Judge Brown, and then I would like to recognize the chair.
Thank you. I appreciate you bringing that. Number one, I want to make certain that particular investigation is available to us. I don't know if you can give me that information, but I'd like to be able to see that investigation. Sure. Secondly, we sent over to the police department sometime in, when this happened, it was in June, 4 questions, right? And they came from our legal advisor, Attorney Yoon. One of those questions was, for what reason was that portion of the body-worn camera footage redacted? The second question says, in all future audio, video, documentary requests, each redaction must be cataloged, the reason for each redaction specified, and that the log of redactions and reasons be sent to us along with the redaction item. Number 3, the most up-to-date written policy for how and when the MMPD is making redactions to items that MNCO is requesting. This is a permanent, ongoing request in that if any changes are made to this policy, we would like to be updated as soon as practicable afterward. And then number 4, an audit of all the redactions that have been made by the MMPD and sent to MNCO previously, prioritized by the most recent first, and a log of each redaction and the reasons thereof, therefore sent to us as soon as practicable. So those are things that you did not address today. You may not have the answers to those, but I just don't want those to kind of get lost in this discussion because we have asked for those things. We haven't heard any response from MMPD in over a month regarding these things that are still very much important and on the forefront of this whole conversation. Because we're still receiving requests for records, we're still receiving body-worn camera footage. We don't know what's happening with that.
Okay. I'll communicate with IT and I'll get that information and send it directly to you.
All right, appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ms. Spencer, then Judge Brown.
Hello, Commander Laura. So I think my first question is around the same kind of vein of questioning a lot of the other board members have been asking. And for me, I'm going to go ahead and start with a comment first, but I agree in the kind of comments that you've been giving, Member Milner, around something does not feel entirely right on this. Still on the idea that you have this person who is very talented in this particular field, and who did operate under certain circumstances at a prior organization, but for somehow with the transition into this particular role with the police department, there was not this kind of communication and verification of what actually needs to come to the board and the staff, as opposed to what goes onto YouTube. Now, to be fair, I'm not fully versed in IT things, but I also know that there's a difference between, understanding the capacity and the requirements between what goes on to the rest of the public and what comes to this body first. And it does feel very concerning, and I don't entirely feel like the explanation of intent is fully communicated here, because I also, and my question goes into, for how far back does this go? We have identified maybe at least from your comments, if I remember correctly, at least 1, 2 other videos, but for how long this person has been working in this position, and again, going to the whole question of how we even came to the issue of correcting the entire thing, how long, how many videos has this person been editing, and how much of this have we just not picked up? And I think that's an answer that, is not necessarily just needed for the board, but for the entire community, because it's a really, really big oversight issue on the department's grounds to not have that kind of verification and process. Because if we can't entirely verify what people are even seeing as evidence, then, the conversation changes, because you can't even talk about what is going on if you don't know what's going on. And so I think that is my main portion of my question. And it's just around the confusion of trying to reconcile what the directive is and how that is being followed through, particularly not just in this one particular employee's case, but how is that being communicated throughout the department? And then also with the understanding that this is supposed to be communicated with us as well.
I just want to make sure you know that now that this has been an issue, it has been addressed with all of the staff. So they understand what the situation is as we move forward. I'm not 100% sure. I couldn't speak on how far they're going back or what they're doing specifically to make sure, what other videos, if any, have been redacted this way. But I can tell you from this point, they know not to do those things, and they are, it's being stressed that they need to make sure that they follow the policy and the SOP to the dot, to the T when it comes to how we redact and how we present these videos. So this is some of these questions, some of these concerns you have. I'll have to go back, talk to IT, and just get some really good information for you. And then I will forward it to Director Fisher so she can forward it to you.
Okay, thank you. And if I may run this, sorry.
Quickly.
And I really do appreciate that. And I do I do still kind of have a little bit of, perhaps hesitation is not the best word, but some kind of concern, even just on the very grounds of how long this body has existed and the whole process that has already existed. And for this to be something to be stressed even just now, not as opposed to even before this body's conception, it does feel like that there is some concern, deep concern there. But, there's also more points that we need to be discussed, more evidence to be brought forward. And so I do also I thank you for those comments, but I also do want to put that out here into the record as well.
Okay, Judge Brown, and we're gonna move on after a few more points here.
I'll try to keep it short. My concern, frankly, is in 50 years as a prosecutor and as a judge, I've never gotten anything that was redacted without some notation that there was a redaction, either a running time log or something else. So I would like to know how this was done without any notation that something has been redacted. That just strikes me as unacceptable and unexplained, that how IT would have something deleted without some indication from time logs or something else that something was missing. The second part is, this is off this particular topic a little, but the redaction before you put stuff out on YouTube and everything, one of the concerns I have is in looking at a lot of these situations, Metro's got a policy against profanity. If you redact out anything you release that's profane, you need to take a look at, should we do that? I see so many of these situations where officers are using profanity just regular, and to me, it's a bad way to de-escalate a situation. I know the police academy said, well, sometimes you have to use that to get somebody's attention. I reject that. And I really wonder if you should take a look at your policy. Leave the profanity in there so that action can be taken by commanders to enforce the policy against using profanity. So that's I'm preaching now, and so I'll stop.
If I could address that, we have a policy, and even in the academy, we have never, ever taught that you use profanity or any type of language like that will escalate a situation or be disrespectful to any of our citizens that we serve. Now, do officers go outside of the policy? Yes, but are we teaching that? Absolutely not. That is why we have the policy that says if you do it, you're going to get in trouble for that. And so, again, we've got the policies there. Unfortunately, sometimes officers don't follow it. And when we find out that they don't follow it, we have no problem addressing it and disciplining. I mean, it's not something that we're trying to hide. We're trying to keep that from happening because we want to de-escalate situations. When officers start to use that kind of language, it does not do that. So.
Okay, and I recognize myself, Chair Hayes. My concern is with the process, the overall process that was used. To my understanding, okay, we discussed this in last month's board meeting, and we mentioned that we were going to contact MNPD because we needed an answer on that. And Attorney Yoon had put out some questions, and then I also responded asking the chief to make this a high priority, which he said he was and everything. But my concern is that I'm thinking, okay, this investigation is going on, everything's fine. But when the first time I knew about that there was an employee was from the media instead of the Community Oversight Board. And if I'm not mistaken, that was the first time the director heard about it. That's the problem there, and we never even got our response even before the board meeting. I appreciate the fact that they sent you here to explain, but it would have been great. It was time, if you have time to communicate with the media, you should have time to communicate with the Community Oversight Board. So that is really concerning to me. And now I recognize Mr. Whistle.
I know you said it was a Category E offense.
That is how they categorize it, yes, sir.
So could you tell me what next steps are with that?
So at this point, the employee did have a written reprimand on it because that's where it came in the matrix that we have, the different categories up to a category F. And so at this point, it'll be a category E first offense. So if he does it again, that now escalates any type of discipline to whatever they feel. If there's aggravating factors, or whatever the situation is, they will now escalate from category E to either category second offense, or they may, aggravate it to a category D, which is higher, longer retention period, more discipline that's given. So it just all depends on the circumstances of if there's another violation, the circumstances of that violation, and then they'll start from where they're at right now with this category E, and they'll work their way up on there.
And one last thing, I have a request. I think that because this body represents the community, and I think it would be very necessary for the employee to watch the footage from this particular portion of our meeting, to just so that person can see how serious this is to us and how serious that we're taking this, and because we represent the community, we want that person to know, regardless of what happens within the police department, we want that the person to know directly how we feel and how much time we're spending on unpacking this conversation because of how important it is for those things not to happen again. So that is my request to that employee supervisor, is that they watch this portion of our meeting.
I will make sure that he receives the video and, gets the link and everything. And again, I just want to stress again, I understand the significance of the mistake, absolutely. But I also want to make sure that you understand that this employee, it's not intentional. It wasn't something, understanding the seriousness, he wasn't trying to hide anything from somebody. This is just something that he did, not realizing this is what he's done for how many years he's worked, and it just kind of followed him here. And so again, he wasn't trying to be intentional. He wasn't trying to hide anything. He made a bad mistake. I think he definitely knows now, and I'm sure once he sees this, he will see the significance of how it affects the board and the rest of the community. But I just want to, make sure that that it's not somebody trying to hide something or, trying to be deceitful or anything like that. That's not the case on this.
Thank you, Commander Laura.
Thank you.
It's about 5 till 6. I would like to move on unless board members have anything burning to say with the Director of Pictures report. Okay, I recognize Dr. Hildreth.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. We've heard it several times that there was no intent of malice or wrongdoing on the part of the individual, and I absolutely accept that. But I need to be very clear to Member Witzel's point about how serious this is for us. We are here because of systemic actions that systemically harm individuals in our community and the community together. And the problem is when one system builds on top of another system and goes into a system, there's a problem. So if we have an employee come over and they just assume, and we say, well, they didn't intend it, but there's no sense of urgency on supervision of changing, hey, how do we have to make sure that we educate and reorient persons who are coming from a different place and not understanding what else we're missing in the system. And then when I pick up my colleague's comment about profanity generally, how are we going to pick up a system of use of profanity, maybe a systemic indicator that, well, we don't teach it in the academy, but they just keep, why is there slippage? Because I'm not going to be caught, because it's going to be bleeped out all of the time. Systems beget systems, beget systems, beget the problems that brought us into this room. Can the department please, if nothing else, not come in and say, we didn't mean it, and expect that that's a defense? We understand that we have highlighted gaps in the system, and we appreciate your coming here as an indicator of these 4 years of there's some things in the system to work. But we need to be guardians of language and intent too. And just because somebody didn't mean it doesn't mean that the system is not broke in a potentially dangerous way. So thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Bernie.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and we'll move on now.
The director's report.
Yeah, if there's nothing else burning with an executive director's report.
Well, it's a
Go
little
ahead.
warm, but.
Okay, come on.
Mr. Chair, I want to draw attention for a minute to the report from the MNPD, Chief Drake on July 18th in response to our request for some policy recommendations. Just as quickly as I can, I want to just say that recommendations 2 through 4 were rejected. And I'll say that as the explanation of it was somewhat circuitous and misdirection. There was a little misdirection in there. And all 3 of them land on, well, you know, what Metro Legal decided. What we were doing in each of those 3 occasions was requesting evidence. When we said that if in fact you don't agree, then we want evidence of why you reached that decision. Each of the 3 issues was based upon the presumption of correctness on the part of this board when we put forward our resolution recommendations, right? All right, that presumption of correctness was totally rejected in all 3 cases, yet we're here talking about accepting intent of an internal investigation. Now, here's my point. First of all, I'd like to ask Metro Legal to actually give us a citation. Not now, I don't need it right now, but the 3 citations that were included in the report, I'd like to see the language at some point, if that's possible, Ms. Fox.
Recognize Attorney Laura Fox.
I just received this. I'm happy to look at it and get information to you. I'm not sure what you're asking for, but I'll be happy to talk with you about it.
Great. And it's cited 3 times. And then finally, Ms. Chair, as relates to all 3 of those, in as much as we were requesting evidence, we do have a process for appeal of that decision. In as much when you look at the MOU between the MNPD and the DGA, it includes what our rights are for compelling evidence. And it says if in fact, you know, we're not satisfied with the response, that we can go to the Chancery Court and make an application. I just want to be real clear about that this was a request for evidence. It was rejected based upon what I would consider to be misdirected kind of explanation. They're citing things that are not included in their explanation, which I'd like to see before we move forward with reaching any conclusions. That's why I asked for the language. And then if in fact it doesn't cut mustard, that we exercise our right to make application. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move to the next item on the agenda. And the next item on the agenda is board discussions. And I do believe the body worn cameras, in-camera update, we've already done that thoroughly. Okay, so that's off the list. And now, so MOU update and then proposed resolution reports and board member vacancies. So, MOU, if there's any committee member, because I know we did have a meeting, if any committee member want to just give us a quick update, if possible, on where we are with that. Okay, Mr. Goddard.
A quick update would be, we met, we discussed concerns we had about the MOU generally. We decided to request of all board members concerned about MOUs, which was Director Fitcher's email to us and back, and have planned another meeting once we hear from whether any additional to come from the board to prioritize and list and prioritize and get on the same page among ourselves with what changes we would like to see in the MOU. And then reach out to the department to have a discussion and try to reach resolution. Now, obviously, the department knows we're heading this direction. It won't be a surprise that we won't have a discussion about the MOU, but that is the process.
Okay, all right. Okay. Dr. Hilder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Still on this topic of the MOU, is we received Director Fitcher's report about the TBI MOU. I had a question to myself. Might it be appropriate for this MOU subcommittee at its next meeting to take up whether they think they should also be engaged in thinking about and advising the board on how to move forward? So without making a motion that this committee take up the TBI, I'm just asking that it be considered as an agenda item at their next meeting and that we receive their recommendation when they come back for this body. Thank you.
Mr. Goddard.
I was too brief. We are considering that, have had that discussion, do intend to do exactly that. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. And I was just gonna ask if there was any general questions once we get through all of these. So the next one is proposed resolution report, Director Fisher.
Yes, thanks. So we all are aware that Attorney Yoon is out on paternity leave. And so because of that, Gavin and I had sit down to determine how many PRRs that we had that were ready, how many investigative reports that we have that are ready. And so we have that information. We have 7 investigative reports. I have those with me. Mr., do you know how many PRRs are ready? Was it 3? 3, so we have 3 PRRs that are ready to move forward. Of course, Mr. Yoon is not here to present those, or they're not completed. So my concern here is that, just like today, we don't have a PRR or any PRRs on our agenda. And so I wanted to talk a little bit around what the solution for that is. Mr. Goddard so gracefully had mentioned in our meeting that there was a possibility of having some volunteers to possibly do this work from the Legal Aid Society. I've also thought about contracting with an attorney to do the PRR process for us. But I did not want to move forward until I had this discussion openly with you all to determine our next route, because Mr. Yoon is going to be out for some months. I don't want this process to stop. And so it does take about, well, I think maybe 7 to 10 to 14 days to do one, is what he has suggested that it takes. Could take someone else less time, could take them more, I'm not sure. But I have 7 investigative reports that I'm going to go over, check the evidence, and get them ready for PRs. But we do have either 2 or 3 that are sitting in our pot ready to be seen and presented. So if you guys have some suggestions, that would be really great, so that we could move forward on this process and not continue to have this and these are all like 2021 cases that we could be done with once we do this.
Attorney Goddard is volunteering to do that.
That's not exactly what happened. If that's the only option we got, I'll help, but that wasn't what I was going to say. To clarify, my comment was in the context of not knowing what support we would get from Metro Legal, and whether we would have anybody, and if we had somebody, whether that was somebody that had a close relationship with the police department, had any concerns about, not a legal conflict of interest, but a personal concern there. And specifically, in case somebody from Legal Aid is watching, I was not volunteering them. I was saying they had been able to get some volunteers for things, and perhaps we could do something similar. In light of my understanding from a couple of discussions, we are going to have substantial support from Metro Legal, and it is not going to be someone that is steeped in representations and past relationship with the police department. And in that case, I think we should certainly try that first, get somebody in, let them do that, whether it's Ms. Fox or people working with her or under her or somebody else. I'm not sure. She could speak to that better than I for certain, but something like that. And I never want to completely presume I know what another lawyer's job and task is, but that length of time to do a report, once the legal advisor has been given the full investigative report, strikes me as a whole lot of hours. I would hope something could be done more quickly than that.
I'd like to recognize Attorney Fox.
Yes, I'm not sure I quite understood the context of your report. So are you asking if our office, are you asking us to review public records that have been requested?
No, what my understanding, and Director Fisher, correct me if I'm wrong, is the current staff we have does the investigation, reviews the videos, requests documents, gets affidavits, interviews witnesses, and prepares, the ones I've looked at are a 25, 30, 35-page report. What Legal Advisor Yoon had then done was take that report in that format, work through it, look behind it at some of the videos, whatever if need be, and prepare what we call a proposed resolution report, a PRR, and there's a fairly standard format for that.
Oh, okay.
A number of legal
PRR
questions.
in our office is usually public records request.
No, that is.
So I didn't understand, I misunderstood the context of what you're talking about.
Here, it's a proposed resolution report. It gives a summary of the facts, much more condensed
Okay.
typically than the full report. Most importantly, it identifies laws or police policies that are in question, determines whether they have or have not been violated. If there have been violations, recommends sanctions within the grid that, as we understand it. Is that a decent summary?
That's correct.
Director, okay, that's what we're talking about. Somebody picking up that report and having access to that investigator that prepared the report if there are questions, that kind of thing.
And then determining what kind of discipline to recommend?
It would, the PRR would typically have a findings of what policies have been violated, a determination what category violation that was, and a recommendation of the disciplinary, if there is a violation, the specific discipline that's recommended within the grid for that level. Now, how much of that is been legal advisor union versus the director has to sign off, I'm not sure. It may be a combination, but
Yeah,
probably.
he does the legwork of it, and then he gives it to me to, and
Got it,
I go
okay.
over the grid and make a sanction determination, and a at the end, a conclusion and my recommendation to the board. He doesn't do that part, but he does put all the legal, information in the report.
Okay, yes, Metro Legal, we're happy to help you with that. I guess we just need to get together and go over that.
Okay, Chair Hayes, I'd like to speak to that just briefly. I think we probably should go both routes, in my opinion, with Metro Legal, because I think it would probably be good to get a contract employee also, or at least pursue that, because I think the person really needs to report to Director Fitchard in order to be effective. I think something's gonna be lost there if the person is reporting to Metro Legal. They may be a great attorney, but they're not reporting to the director on a day-to-day basis. So in my opinion, I think we probably need to go both routes, is to try to look at both of those. Any comments? Mr. Holloway.
That would be great to get a contractor, for forever, how long, but with that in our budget, we gotta look and see what our budget look like.
I think we have some areas for legal consultation, as well as just consultation in general. So I think that we could, depends on, well, it really depends on what their hourly wage is over there. I have no idea
Yes.
what that could be. So we do have some funding. I don't know exactly to the extent. It really would depend on what an attorney is contracting with us, how they want to be paid and all that kind of stuff.
And I think we're just talking, what, a period of, is it 3 months? 3 or 4 months?
Yeah, and in those 3 and 4 months, it could be that we do it based on monthly, or it could be on how many reports that we have, which I think makes more sense. But I don't really know, what the hourly wage or hourly rate, the going rate is at this point.
I don't think we should rule it out, but we can look into it and see if it'll meet our need, because, it depends on what the average rate is and, what we're looking for and what kind of work they be offering to do. And if it meet our need and we qualify and won't hurt our budget, I said go forward,
Ms. McCree?
We brought this up before, it was in a really different context. However, we did discuss possible interns or from law institutions. Maybe this would be a great opportunity to expand our reach into the community a little bit. So if there are qualified law students who are looking to engage in this work, it might be a good opportunity to engage them.
Mr. Milliner?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for the sake of, again, of background for those who haven't followed this issue or maybe hearing it the first time, I wouldn't want them to think that this is something that we haven't anticipated. This board has repeatedly asked in budget years for additional legal advisors and have been denied. So I wouldn't want anything disparagingly contributed either to this board and particularly to our executive director. We've gone there, we've asked for it, we've been denied. Now we're seeing the fruits of the no's and the denials.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, now, board member vacancy. Director Fitchard.
Yes, so we are anticipating a board member vacancy. As we all know that.
Who's that?
Our chairs, this will be his last board meeting. And so of course, I'm very saddened for his departure, and really appreciate the work that he's done and worked so hard over these last months to bring us where we are. And I think without his leadership, we would not be this further along. His advocacy, his love of this community and this work has been next to, there's nothing that I've seen it in other, as long as we've been in existence, of the dedication that you have provided to us. And for that, I am extremely grateful for his leadership in stretching me as a leader to do more and to require more and ask for more. And so for that, I am humbly grateful for your leadership. I will say that we were initially waiting, Mr. Yoon had said that we should wait until sometime in August to do this process. He gave us a outline of how the nominations process would go. You all received that in the report. But one of the things that was a suggestion was that we would wait to do the nomination, not make the notification to Vice Mayor Schulman, so that, you know, it could possibly wait till the whole process finished with the nominations. I disagree with that simply, and I want you guys' opinion, simply because it takes so long for the council to get this process done that I think making notification after the chair steps down so that they can get it on the next calendar month, which would be September, and maybe we can get a replacement in the month of September opposed to waiting to the month of October, where we would have no, you know, an unfilled position for, you know, more than 60 days. So I just wanted to see if everyone was okay with that process, if someone would like to, I don't think we have to have a motion for that, but I just wanted to have a quick discussion because I have the information to send to the vice mayor as soon as Mr. Hayes's resignation is accepted on the 4th. So.
Mr. Holloway.
So how many vacancies will we have? Was just his position or do we have 2 vacancies?
No, it would just be Mr. Hayes.
Just, okay, well, I would think, talk with the council, you know, send them a letter or something, let them know how we stand, and so they can go ahead and get the ball rolling, so it won't take a long period of time, and see what they can do on it.
And I'll say as far as me, I'm all for it. If you can even send it, I don't know if it's enough time to get it on the August, for their August council meeting.
I don't know.
Okay,
They may have already had the August calendar.
okay. All right. Any other questions on any of the discussions? Okay, the next item on the agenda is Policy Advisory Research Proposal. Mr. Carl Williamson, you have the floor.
Good evening, board. Good to see you all. I'm here, as the chair just said, to present to you a research proposal regarding body-worn cameras. It's important to note before I really get into this that this is just a research proposal. This is going to require board approval, which I believe is just a simple majority vote, for me to continue along with this research. So just bear that in mind, that this is far from set in stone, and the board can add and modify this request, or this proposal rather, as they see fit. And you should all have had a copy of this on your seats ahead of this, so feel free to follow along. Just a bit of brief background on MNPD's body-worn camera program. As of August 2021, 98% of officers were outfitted with body cameras, meaning that they achieved functional compliance with the policy as of August of 2021. That's a bit, MNPD was a bit behind the curve nationally. By the end of 2016, 80% of large police departments had acquired body cameras. But the reason that MNPD and so many police departments have acquired them is because they're a very popular technology. Depending on what survey you look at, it's anywhere from 2/3 to 97% of the public support officers wearing body cameras. And the reason for that is very likely because this is not a partisan issue. Activists are generally in support of body cameras as a means of transparency, and departments themselves are in favor of body cameras generally because it's a liability thing, it protects against complaints, and a number of other reasons. So this is a pretty popular technology for a number of reasons. That said, the evidence for body-worn cameras is a little bit shaky. It's a new technology, so that makes sense, but there's not really been found aggregate effects of body cameras on use of force, assaults on officers, officer-initiated calls for service, arrests, traffic stops, or field interviews. But as I mentioned, that's because it's a new technology. That doesn't mean it's not effective. That just means we don't really know how to study it as of yet. As I mentioned, people do like them both for pro-police and pro-accountability reasons, so I won't belabor that point. But I would like to highlight that the IACP, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, highlights that auditing and accountability is one of 9 important tenets in their view in terms of effective deployment of body cameras. And to MNPD's credit, they do already conduct a number of audits. You can see here they conduct monthly, semi-annual, activation, compliance, quality control, and training audits, and that's great. I'm really happy that they do that. However, as we just heard in this conversation, there are some hot topic issues, shall we say, in terms of MNPD's body-worn cameras. We heard about one issue at length, the potential redaction of video, or I guess it's redaction of video now. And there's also the issue that came to light a couple of weeks ago that 180 videos of arrests, as well as 540 videos of other incidents were not properly uploaded to a server, and so we do not have records of those. That sort of serves as the impetus for this study. I do think it's encouraging that MNPD conducts their own audits, but I and other MNCO staff believe that it would enhance public trust of the program if we were to do sort of our own monitoring of that, or at least in the form of one-off research project. And in fact, in the professional specialist position that we wrote and got approved for this fiscal year, we put one of their job duties as increasing the monitoring that the COB conducts on body-worn cameras to proactively assess whether there are systemic issues in policies or procedures. So that seems like we just put it on the T for that particular role, to be doing research just like what I'm proposing. So I'm kind of trying to get out ahead of us hiring that position and have groundwork laid in place so that that person can hit the ground running, in addition with myself and other research staff. And I also want to highlight that it's been shown that policy that regulates, confines, and audits body-worn camera usage has been shown to be one of the most important factors in the activation of body-worn cameras, which I would suggest indicates that good policy leads to, can change officer behavior and cause them to use body-worn cameras in the ways that are in line with best practices. So having auditing protocols in place, both from the department and from an external oversight body, would probably be the best way to accomplish that. With that in mind, you can see 5 major research questions that I've proposed here, as well as several sub-questions. So I'll just hit the major ones. 1, how compliant are MNPD officers with their body-worn camera in-car camera policy? 2, when violations of policy occur, are there certain scenarios in which they are more likely to occur? I asked that both in terms of people. Do violations more likely occur to certain people, and do they more likely occur in certain types of encounters? 3, has MNPD developed accurate and reproducible self-reporting on body-worn camera, in-car camera adherence? 4, are body-worn camera, in-car camera videos capturing a representative sample of use of force cases? And 5, are there any policy failures related to systemic issues with body-worn camera, in-car cameras? To answer those questions, we will review a number of documents and policies that already exist, including, of course, the body-worn camera policy, MNPD IT's body-worn camera and in-car camera systems user manual, body-worn camera training, as well as a variety of best practices, including the Bureau of Justice Administration's body-worn camera policy review scorecard. In addition to those already existing sources, I propose that we collect a number of primary forms of data ourselves, including interviews with MNPD training staff, body-worn camera staff regarding the pros, cons, implementation, and auditing of the program, interviews with other agencies and departments who have conducted audits of body-worn cameras, such as the Austin City Auditor, conducting focus groups and meetings with representatives from the DA's and the public defender's offices pertaining to their auditing protocols and the potential for departmental collaboration, as well as collecting a random sample of body-worn camera footage linked to arrests to determine any potential policy violations, and a random sample of Form 213s, which are MNPD's random monthly audits, as well as the accompanying body-worn camera footage of those events. Finally, we'd like to review copies of those audits that I mentioned to you earlier, including activation, compliance, semi-annual, training, and quality control audits. You'll see on the next page, you can kind of think of this as a review or an audit scorecard. These are sort of borrowed questions from other auditing agencies who have done body-worn camera audits. And so I think that these questions kind of reflect the cutting edge of what folks are doing when they are auditing body-worn camera footage. But much like this entire report, my ears are open for suggestions, so please don't think any of this is set in stone. And as you're listening to all this, I just want three major overarching questions to come into people's minds, which I think accurately and comprehensively capture what we're looking for here. One, how, according to written policies and training, is MNPD supposed to use their cameras? Two, how do they actually use them in practice? And three, how do they audit and correct their usage? So I think that really is comprehensive from the time policy is written to the time that any mistakes are potentially made. What is MNPD doing within that whole window? And I won't read this whole long quote that I've put here, but in terms of broader impact, I think it's really important to view body-worn cameras in the aggregate. While one incident may or may not present evidence for prosecution or indicate misconduct, at the aggregate level, body camera data may reveal potentially important patterns and practices, and it may reveal that data that might seem of minor evidentiary value in one particular incident is actually reflective of much larger and more systemic issues. I kind of have already hit broader impact, but I do want to highlight that as outlined in the charter, we do have the option of establishing a monitoring program that provides ongoing review or audit of the complaint process administered by OPA or the equivalent internal affairs program in MNPD, which I think gives us license to do this sort of work. And I think that this research really doesn't present any risks. Any data that would be presented would be de-identified and aggregated. And we already store body-worn camera footage, so we would store it in a similar way, so I don't think there's any risks there. As I mentioned already, this is just a proposal. If you do all vote to approve this tonight, I have a sort of tentative timeline for the remainder of summer and fall. We would conduct this research, gather data. In the winter, we would analyze it, and hopefully by spring of next year, we'd be able to produce a policy advisory report, though of course that's all very tentative. And the last thing I wanted to highlight, something you do have to decide tonight is whether you would like this to be on a regular or an expedited track. That can change in the future. I would not recommend this to be on an expedited track personally. I think that this is a topic that requires careful, thoughtful, deliberate attention, and I also want to have the greatest possible opportunity for public feedback. So putting that on a regular track instead of an expedited track, I think achieves both of those goals. And I think that's all I have. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Crowell-Williamson. Are there any questions or comments on Mr. Crowell-Williamson's report? Okay, Ms. Spencer, and, okay, Dr. Hildreth, you were pointing to her. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Crowell-Williamson. This was amazing, as usual. I really enjoy it. I have one request, and it will not deter me from voting in favor of accepting or authorizing you to move forward. But if you could, backward for this and going forward, also provide us with citations and references. And when these are electronic, hot links are great, because I would like totally click on and continue to read. Your slide 5, for example, where for the proposed study, your third bullet says, policies that regulate, confine, and audit body camera use have been shown to be. I really would like to bear down in that, and I also think that the long quote that you have on slide 10 from Professor Mary Fan is also worth engaging larger. So with that addition, I'm going to be prepared to support a motion. Thank you.
I could absolutely add that to the PowerPoint. It is in the research proposal itself. You'll find all those citations, which I believe was emailed to all of you as well. But I think for the public point of view, I think that's an excellent suggestion, and I'll definitely do that.
Thank you.
Ms. Spencer, then Ms. McCree.
Oh, thank you again as well for all of this. And I think my main question for this, and again, in a similar vein to Dr. Hildreth. But I'm just wondering, like, if perhaps with this research proposal, if there is gonna be a lot more like done on community perspectives around body-worn cameras. So like, what is the public's general feeling around body-worn cameras, and, you know, how is the public also feeling, like, are people actually like paying attention to them? Like, what's that kind of use and perspective like? And I think that would be really riveting and really continue to flesh out like this entire proposal. I think it would just be a really interesting like addition to it.
I fully agree, and I don't think it would be particularly difficult to conduct town halls or focus groups or whatever have you, and I think that'd be a great addition to the proposal.
Ms. McCree?
Gavin, again, great report. I would like to move to accept the report with the modifications that board member Hildreth and Spencer have made. Yeah, so that's my motion.
Okay, well, is there any further discussion? Judge Brown?
I don't oppose the study in general, but I would like to get some idea of what amount of time and personnel it's gonna require to do this. We don't have all the resources. We don't have any PPRs to prepare, and I've seen some of these studies kind of take a life of their own and get way too long. So I'd like to see, before we vote on approving this, a breakdown of what's the time and personnel that this is gonna take.
Well, I think that the last slide of the presentation gives a tentative outline. I don't think that it would take up 100% of my job capacities, and I don't think it would take up 100% of the capacities of another analyst and or another professional specialist whenever they're hired. I don't have numbers of hours of weeks that I would spend on this, but I think it's perfectly reasonable to say that this would not take up any of our full-time jobs.
I'd like to get some idea, not take up 100% leaves an awful lot. I'd like to get some idea of what it's expected to take.
Ms. McCree okay, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, there's a motion on the floor pending a second.
Okay, I need to follow through on that.
Well,
Thank you.
I would like to offer that second.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second that we approve or disapprove the policy advisory report. Now, is there any further discussion? Okay, Ms. McCree, if Judge Brown was finished, are you finished?
Well, I think we got the motion before we finished the discussion, so leaving that aside,
But this discussion is
I'll
part of the
repeat.
motion.
Granted, I still, before I can vote for this, I need to have some breakdown of what this is gonna involve.
Now, Ms. McCree and then Mr. Goddard.
Thank you, Chair. I am reflecting on some words that Board Member Hildreth said, and I don't know if it was last meeting or the meeting before last, but this is one of the most exciting parts of the work that we do here as a board, that we get to hear you do as a board. A lot of the PPRs that we hear, we're stonewalled by decisions of MNPD and the chief, and we seem to get nowhere with that, but this is an area where we can dream, right? This is an area where we can see what is possible, where we see what is possible and what other departments are doing. And so I want to encourage you to continue to do this research and the work, and then just put it out there for our board members that while we do have a lot to get done and we have limited resources, I think this is a worthy investment of our time.
Mr. Goddard, and then Director Fitcher.
I too was impressed. I'm impressed with my abilities here. I too was impressed with the quality of this and very much wanted to go forward. I share Judge Brown's concern about what this means, and without asking you to come up with the number of hours or full-time yearly equivalents or whatever, Could we be working on 3 of these at the same time over this next 9 months? I don't have 2 others to suggest, but is it the kind of thing that might take up a third of the full staff once you're staffed up time, or is it gonna be more like 80% of their time? Can you give me some comfort on that?
In answering your question, I'm going to assume that we are a fully staffed research
Please,
team, which would be
please.
myself, another research analyst, and the professional specialist.
All of which are now budgeted.
All of which are now
That's
budgeted,
fine,
and we
yes.
are in the hiring process for. This is not dreaming any new
I
positions.
understand.
I think that this is squarely in the center of the professional specialist's duties. It's kind of their job to conduct body-worn camera and license plate reader analysis for the board effectively. So I think that this could be their primary work. In terms of myself and the other research analysts, I could very easily see 2 other research proposals being worked on simultaneously.
Perfect. License plate reader's one I had in mind. That gives me enough comfort, Judge Brown. I don't know if it does you or not, but that we're not looking at over half the staff time for 9 months being on one thing.
Director Fisher.
Hi. I did want to say a couple things. Gavin and I had been talking about this proposal many months before this situation with a body-worn camera issue with MMPD. And then it was, of course, it became more urgent once we found out that the body-worn camera issue where there was missing footage. And so I do think, Judge Brown, that we will have the bandwidth to be able to have this report done, and they continue to do the other work that they are doing when we hire these new people. And I will say that this isn't just we have been looking at body-worn cameras and ways to audit body-worn camera for a while. It's not just something that is just popped up today. I mean, we've been thinking about this, trying to determine, we have these discussions regularly in our office about what are prevalent issues that are facing MMPD, and how do we do this work and audit them in a way that, will be helpful to them in knowing what's happening. It's written into their policy that they should do audits. We don't know how those audits are happening. So it has always been a concern of mine, and I appreciate him putting this together and having a timeline in place on how we can get this done.
And I'd also like to recognize Commander Laura. I think he wanted to comment on, did you? Okay.
There we go. I want to give you a little bit of an insight on how much data we're talking about when we're talking about auditing, so that you have understanding of how much video camera footage you have to look at. So this is the average data per week since the beginning of the year through 2022, all of this year. So again, average data or video footage that we actually have to review or we gain. All recordings, the average per week is about 27,838 videos. Out of those, 250 per week, again, this is just the average across the whole entire year to this point. 250 are related to general contacts. 1,107 are related to traffic stops. 23 are related to police crashes. 56 are related to use of force and pursuits. 5,257 are related to training, testing, miscellaneous. 241 are related to investigative stops. 266 are related to evidence searches. 2,092 are related to arrests. And 18,537 are related to other calls for service. So we're talking about, this is the footage, this is not counting the hours. So you may have a 5-minute video and then you may have a 5-hour video. And so just want to let the board understand what type of data we're talking about, how much footage we're talking about when you're talking about auditing these body cameras and in-car cameras. So I don't know if that's going to help the board just kind of make a better educated understanding of what you're looking at.
Thank you. And while you have the mic, I do want to say I appreciate the work that you do. I don't have to say this because I'm leaving as the chair, but I do want to let you know that I appreciate all the hits that you've taken coming to convey information to us.
Well, thank you,
Thank
and
you.
I appreciate the work you've done as well, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Crowd-Williamson?
Yeah, just to briefly respond, I'm certainly not suggesting that we audit all those videos. I don't think that that's feasible, even if we multiply our staff by 20. Any of these audits that you're looking at and that I've referenced, They use statistical sampling procedures to pick a certain number
Yes.
of those videos. I've seen in these auditing reports that those numbers can go as low as 40, they can go as high as 200 and something. It really depends on the department and the size of that. I haven't run those numbers yet because I didn't know if I was going to be allowed to do this research. But rest assured that I'm not going to be pouring over thousands of videos and thousands of hours of videos. This could, I gave you a range already. I don't know where it fits in there, but I'm confident that it will.
And I was looking at the corner of my eye, I don't know if Dr. Hilders or Ms. Spencer, who was first? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Briefly, I had one thought, but now a new one comes up. Question, Mr. Crowley-Williamson. Your regular day job, does your labor contribute to the investigations or the preparation of PRRs? Do you do that work?
Very little. Daniel occasionally has me, legal advisor Yoon occasionally has me look over PRRs just to read them for content and language, but I don't spend very many hours.
That's not the primary function of your position, and
Not
that
at all.
would be true of the other analysts that we're bringing on.
To the best of
Is
my
that
knowledge,
correct?
yes.
Thank you. So that whether you choose to look at all 27,000 or not, that's not going to slow down the PRRs. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And then based on Commander Laura's, I'm loving that, sir. Can we have a list, that list that you made and the numbers? We would love to get that as a board, and you know what I'm going to say. Say it with me, people, and can we post it on the website, please, as we go forward? Because I do think, and I'm going to take Judge Brown's point here, that it may be, even if we vote to approve it tonight, it may come back to us, and we might have another sort of scoping and shaping and sculpting conversation at the August meeting, and it could be where we say, well, out of those, we're gonna rule out, well, all the training videos don't have to go and the others, but we wanna look at, but it may be in the 18,000 others, if there were mental health calls or ones that were also doing right. So give us a chance, if you don't mind, to help us dream with you as to what that looks like. And Commander Laura, your list is like amazing, and we will work on that. So thank you so much.
Yes, and in fact, our rules stipulate that that can be part of any policy advisory report, monthly updates to the board on the research process. So that would be well within scope and ability.
We have 19 minutes before 7, so, Ms. Spencer and then Mr. Milliner.
We don't have to use all.
Right, that's true.
We actually have until 8.
No, we don't. I'm still the chair. Okay.
Initially, Judge Brown, when you brought up your comments, I was starting to feel, still very much in the affirmative, but still feeling some of the same kind of reservations. But I think now, after your explanations, from not just from your day-to-day workload in that time, but also what the program specialists will be doing, and as I like to imagine it, how the community liaison could fit into it and like help support the work as well. I feel like I add her every time, every other meeting, but it's just because I love and trust the work. And I'm thinking about all these different, as Commander Laura has outlined, all these different contexts that there is actual video in, and how that can be diversified. And then thinking again, public perception and understanding, how that just blows the whole door wide open. I think you can get even deeper into what we as a community are experiencing and feeling, and from how the department is supposed to use it, and what there's actually going on in practice, and what changes need to be made, if any at all. And so at this point, I am all for it. I am especially down for this. I feel like it has just opened up, and especially this new list, this opens up a whole new range of ways of thinking about this data and how it can be interpreted. Because I understand, there's a lot of times where, it feels like we're doing all these different surveys. It's a lot of analyzing, but not enough doing. But I feel like this is a very, very clear situation in which we are not just doing analyzing, but you're also engaging people and creating new avenues in which to further continue to engage the community in a deeper and deeper way. And I just want to say I'm just fully for this.
Okay, I'm ready to end the discussion after Mr. Milliner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two procedural issues. Number one is on the clarification of the motion that we're talking about a non-expedited basis, correct?
Yes.
My second procedural issue is calling for the question. Calling for the vote.
Okay. All right. Good. All in favor of the motion to approve the policy advisory research proposal, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The motion carries. Now, next on the agenda is public comment. Are there any members of the public that wish to make a comment at this time? And I don't know if we had any emails, anything, but if there are any members that would like to make, anyone that would like to make a public comment, you have 3 minutes, if you do. Okay.
Mr. or David Van Cleef.
Good evening.
Giving honor to God and to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, to Director Fitchard, Commander Loria, Chairman Hayes, and to the rest of the board, I just wanted to thank you all for your service. I'm saddened to say that this is my first meeting that I'm attending, and it's your last. But I really enjoyed your opening statement. I never had the opportunity of meeting the great senator, but I do share his spirit because from my earliest memories, I can hear my mother's voice telling me to get out of the way. I'm very interested in this process. I know that community policing is a difficult endeavor, but it can work. But it takes a lot on both sides to give. The history of our country is shaped with a lot of colorful incidents, and there's a lot of mistrust between the community and our police forces. But the process can work, and in order for it to work, it must have trust. In order to have trust, we must have transparency. We must also have diversity, equity, and inclusion. Without those key pieces, community policing will not work. There are pockets in America where it is working, so I know that the process does work. I was a little disheartened to hear about employees of MNCO having to be Davidson County residents. That doesn't seem very equitable, and I was just wondering if anybody has brought forth to the mayor, since MMCO employees must be Davidson County residents, are they going to make that change to all the other Davidson County governmental offices so that we can all be on the same page? If they don't want to take that restriction off of MNCO, then are they going to place that restriction on the other members of local government? And again, I just like to say, police officers, not all police officers are bad. We have a lot of good police officers out there. I'm a 30-year military veteran and 11-year civil service with the Coast Guard and the VA. I've been here in Davidson County for the last 10 years. During my military career, we had an expression called speed of the leader. So any changes that have to take place that's going to make an impact on community policing have to come from a top-down approach. If it's not coming from the top man down to the bottom man, that expectation has to be made from the top down in order for change to take place. We can't have any pockets of indecision. And that comes with training as well. What we do in practice is what we do in the game. So I thank you for your time. I'll halt my comments at this time. Again, thank you all for your service.
Thank you.
And thank you for your service, sir.
Next would be Ms. Tanya Jacobs. I don't see her. And then next is Ms. Robin Kimbrough Hayes for public comment.
Well, good evening. Good evening. I know a lot about this board. My husband's the chair. And and I'm prepared for all the boos and side eyes that I've been getting in the community, since May the 3rd. But I want to tell you that my husband works tirelessly, for this board. He works really, really hard, and last night I was talking about something. He said, honey, I'm listening, but I'm also working. I said, oh my goodness. I said, don't worry about me, honey. Go ahead, go ahead. He takes his work very seriously. And I really admire him, and he's very passionate about this work. Well, I'm not Senator Gilmore, Brenda Gilmore, but she drafted a resolution for you in honor of your service to the Nashville community, to Almeida Church, to the Community Oversight Board, to Community Oversight Now, to your church, and she also mentions Vivian in the resolution as well. And so you don't know it, but your daughters are on the Zoom right now, watching this by Zoom.
I thought they would be on, but I wasn't
We
sure.
were trying to surprise you, but you took charge and sent out a link and all of that. But we just want to say, I want to say that I love you. You inspire me, and I hope that you will continue to do this work. Maybe you can't continue in this capacity, unfortunately, but in other ways you will continue to serve our community. So may God continue to bless you and keep you in every area of your life. And congratulations to this board and to Director Pritchard for all that she does, the work in the community. And I've enjoyed meeting you all out here. And I will gladly take the side eyes and boos, because he is a huge contributor. I wish we could clone Arnold Hayes. I see the work he does on boards, and he serves on another committee related to this board, and the care that he takes in doing that is just amazing. So we need more board members like that. So thank you. I know this is not paid work, but you do it because you care about the community. And I look forward to serving in my new capacity. So this is on behalf of Senator Brenda Gilmore, and you'll be presented with a framed copy at another time. So congratulations.
And I can say as the chair, I am surprised, I'm very much surprised. I didn't know anything about it.
Honey, it was like pulling teeth to get all
Yes.
your information.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And I guess since we're talking now, okay. Earlier I did mention Adric and Robin, and I mentioned that Arnisha, Christina, Marlena was probably online. And then I did not mention Elizabeth. and I did not mention my granddaughter Jordan and my son-in-law Scott. So I wanted to do a disclaimer with that because, hey, family. Okay.
Well, here's your certificate.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
All right, absolutely.
Okay. Is there any other public comments? Director Fisher, is there any other public comments?
No, not at this time.
Okay. All right, so now we are down to new business. Mr. Goddard.
Very quickly, I think if we could clear up the issue of why our board membership is restricted to Davidson County residents or registered voters or whatever. I believe, I'm looking at Ms. Fox to correct me if she knows, I believe that is a state mandated requirement for oversight boards. It is nothing the council did or can undo, or the mayor did or can undo. That's not to say I
That's
think it's a
correct.
good idea, but that's where it came from. Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, as chair, I'd like to speak to that a little bit though, because I do think the council and the mayor can push back. There have been so many other issues that the state has decided that they were gonna do, and the council and the mayor decided that we're not gonna do that in Davidson County. We're not gonna enforce it. So there is something that the mayor and the council can do, in my opinion. Any other comments? Okay, all right, next item on the agenda, again, is there any more new business? Okay, if not, now I will turn over the chair because we're to the next item on the agenda, Community Organization Award and the adjournment, and I would like to turn the chair over to Vice Chair, Dr. Hilder.
Thank you, Chair Hayes. It is my distinct pleasure and honor to announce the next agenda item, and that is Community Organization Award Presentation. The Executive Committee and Executive Director, and the recipient of that award is Community Oversight Now. Director Fitchett, would you like to please proceed?
Thank you. If the Community Oversight Now core team or planning team, if you guys could please stand up, that would be really great. I want to thank each of you. First off, I want to say Andrea Flores Burrows, Nick Cavan, Melissa Cherry, Nicole Knowles-Ellis, Sekou Franklin, Gracie Gadsden, Arnold Hayes, DJ Hudson, Susan Hudson McBride, Jacola Lane, Mark Lee, Sheila Clemens Lee, Theda Murphy, Sandra Porter, Jacqueline Sims. I want to thank you all for your work. I also want to, if there's anyone else that worked or were associated with the organizing, would you please stand as well? All right. So I want to thank each of you and the many others that worked so hard to accomplish the goal of seeing the Community Oversight Board come to fruition. It is not lost on me that in order for us to be in existence, the lives of 2 young Black men were taken, and we hold ourselves accountable for seeing that their blood spill isn't in vain. We know that having a Community Oversight Board was something that the Nashville NAACP and community pushed for in the years past because of the lack of accountability within the Metro Nashville Police Department. We are very thankful that we are here almost 4 years strong, doing the work as active partners in the dreams of this community. Every day, the Community Oversight Board and staff serve the Nashville community. We also feel the pain and struggle you felt during this journey. But with that, we are also experiencing the manifestation of your spirit, commitment, love, faith, courage, hope, tenacity, resilience, endurance, perseverance, strength, freedom, liberty, justice, and the power of the footprints you left for us to walk in. We continue to do this work because of your example. You never gave up, you never gave in, which strengthens the community's ability to see love being walked out in real time. You deserve more than what we can give you today, but we want to acknowledge what a powerful group of people you are and let you know how much your sacrifices are appreciated. And for those mothers who have lost a son, your strength is encouraging to us all. You are the reason why we continue to fight for accountability, transparency, commitment, and community. And speaking about this amazing board that I serve on, in the famous words of Antoine Fisher, if you all know who that is, I'm still standing and I'm still strong. Thank you. And now we have a plaque. And we would like board members who would like to participate in this reading of this resolution. Would you please stand at the podium with me? I think they're
Coming over there. We get to move y'all.
We want to present this. And board members, if you could start the reading of this, that would be great. Stand up. We're gonna read this to you all. You guys want to come up?
I'll let somebody start.
Whereas, since the Community advocates and groups such as the Nashville NAACP had been calling for a COB for over 4 decades.
Whereas community organizations renewed demands for a COB between September 2016 and February 2017.
Whereas after the fatal officer-involved shooting of Jacques Clemens on February 10, 2017, a coalition of community organizations officially called Community Oversight Now in March was formed to collectively push for a COB.
Whereas dozens of community events were held across Nashville to educate the public on the need for a COB.
Whereas Community Oversight Now's coordinating committee authored COB legislation that was introduced on November 7th, 2017 by Council Members Scott Davis and Sharon Hurt, SBL 2017-951, which passed first reading.
Whereas BL 2017-951 failed to move forward on January 2018 when the Metro Council voted against a public hearing to discuss the adoption of an oversight board.
Whereas on April 4th, 2018, Community Oversight Now launched a charter referendum petition to put the COB decision in the hands of the Nashville voters.
Where after the fatal officer-involved shooting of Daniel Hambrick on July 26, 2018, the COB effort gained much-needed momentum, but with a price, another young black man's life.
Whereas 1 year after legislation was introduced to the Metro Council, Amendment 1 was ratified overwhelmingly by Nashville voters on November 6, 2018, in spite of failed legal challenges by the police union.
Whereas the Community Oversight Board was created through the dedicated organizing efforts of Nashville activists and supporters who recognize the need for more accountability in policing.
And that is the resolution. We thank you for your service to the Nashville community. We appreciate you, and we hope that this honors you, the work that you've done to get this board up and running. Thank you. Yeah.
Let's get a picture of all the moves and
Okay.
breaking off.
All right. Somebody instruct, I can't instruct.
Okay.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Adjourn before the pictures.
Ooh, that's
Let's, which one would you say?
Yeah.
Adjourn before. Oh, yes. Chair Hayes, we should adjourn.
Okay, no, I'm not the chair. Dr. Hildren.
So
I
from
took care of
here,
that.
thank you, and we move to the last agenda item, and that is adjourned. Do we have a motion? Second? All in favor? We stand adjourned. Let's party.
Take a picture of it.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.